recently I had a physical therapy practice owner who was a little stressed out about one of his employees. Everybody on his team was doing great. They were hitting their KPIs, they were hitting their efficiency, except they had one individual. And it wasn't a new person. It was someone who's been there for a while, and they just simply weren't hitting their productivity goals. Not just 1 week, not two, not three, but like for 2 months, 3 months in a row, something's got to give. So I reached out and I asked him, I said, okay, what have you done already? And so we did the performance improvement plan. We've tried a couple of things and it's just simply not working. I think I might have to let him go. However, I'm concerned that if we let him go, the team's not going to be happy. And I said, why not? And he goes, because they're a really good culture fit. So this is really typical for when you're looking at the performance matrix and you got your tier 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. These tier 2s are interesting because they're really high core values. People love them, right? They adhere to all the standards, own the outcome, push the rock, whatever it takes. They do all the things. But then at the end of the day, when you look at their productivity, we're not where we need to be. So when we look at employees, specifically our employees that we have, and we want to map them out, right? We have this thing called tier 1s, tier 2s, tier 3s, and tier 4. It's a really easy framework to be able to look at an employee and figure out where they're at and what do they need to do in order to get to the next level. Because realistically, the goal here is to get everybody to this tier 1 status, which is core values and productivity. So we're looking for people that have really high core values and really high productivity. And actually, we're trying to get most of our team members up into that little block there, okay? Now, ultimately, when we're looking at this thing, if we're not a tier 1, we need 2s to become 1s, we need 3s to become 1s, and we need 4s to go get another job. That's how that looks. So what I mean by that is like tier 2s are going to be things we call developers. And this is where this owner, they had a developer issue, right? They want to be able to develop this person in a tier 1. They just didn't really know how. Tier 3s, on the other hand, these are called toxic, right? Toxic talent. And the reason for that is because they have really high productivity, but because they have core value issues, right? It's like they do the job of 3 people, but they let everybody know it, like everybody, right? So they'll say things like, oh, if they let me go, good luck. Probably don't want those people on your team, right? And you think about it, you're like, I'm going to go ahead and ascend this person. We're going to come up with a performance improvement plan with someone with core value issues to become a tier 1. And so honestly, that might work like 20% of the time. However, like 80% of the time, right? They're either going to stay the same or they're going to just backslide into a tier 4 and be really miserable on the way out, right? This is like the person that's going to be kicking and screaming a little bit on the way out. And so the reason why I say we just terminate these people, I used to say we could change behavior and do all these things. It just takes a lot of time and people have to be willing to change. That 20% that we can get into a tier 1, it's not worth the risk for the 80%. So that's why I just draw a line in the sand, is that anybody with core value issues on your team, like this is like your termination line, right? Anybody below this line, we're going to terminate. So then ultimately we do have these underperformers as well. These are low core values and low productivity. We just free up their future. Okay. So that leaves us over here with developers, because we do have an 80% chance that they are going to ascend and become a tier 1 employee eventually. But we do have to understand that there is a 20% chance that when you tell someone with core value issues that they're not doing a good job and they're not really aware of the fact that they're not doing a good job, which is usually why they're not productive anyways, because they just lack some awareness there. They usually lose some intrinsic motivation and they just start showing up differently in the workforce. It's just, you're trying to be sincere, candor, and have good feedback loops and have hard conversations. And then when you have a hard conversation with them, like they completely shut down because they're so high core values and high energy and everybody loves them, that when you tell them that they're not really who they think they are, they downgrade into more of this tier 4 employee and just you have a different person showing up. So we're trying to prevent that from happening, right? So it's just, okay, how do I get a developer into this tier 1 status? First and foremost, you always have to understand, like, how do I identify if this person's not doing a good job first, right? Because we can't just be subjective about it. So number 1, I always ask a simple question. Anytime someone's having an employee issue, did you set expectations and have you held them accountable? And really quick on this is that if you're able to say, yep, we set expectations, they know exactly what their job is, they know what their role is, they know their KPIs, they're filling out a scorecard, we're good to go. Okay, great, awesome. Then the next thing is, are you holding them accountable? And we have a video out about the accountability dial, so check that out. However, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, it's basically that there's 5 levels of accountability. And we're trying to get people, not me giving you feedback, but you giving me feedback on how you think you're doing. And the reason for that is that's like when you look at the word accountability, it's what is your ability to give your own feedback on your own skill set. Not me give it to you, because me give it to you is micromanagement. You telling me how you're doing is more accountability. So I want to set up like a system of sorts, right? For them to be able to tell me on a weekly basis, are we on or off track of what they're supposed to be doing? So we know the target, and now are we on or off track? And accountability is just simply expectations plus measurement times feedback. Okay, so we have, their roles, their job description, we have some kind of scorecard KPI, and we have some kind of feedback loop that they're telling me why they are or aren't performing. Okay, so if I could check both of those boxes, I know it's a person issue. If I can't check both of those boxes, I know it's a me issue, right? And I just need to re-onboard them, right? Because the reason they're not productive or the reason they are not adhering to the core values is because I just need to simply re-onboard them first. And then once I set expectations, I'm holding them accountable. Now we could actually look at, okay, there's something going on with the person and we need to be able to correct it. Okay, so that's how we first identify if this person is or is not having an issue. Then the next thing that we want to do is we want to figure out, okay, what skills do they need to possess in order for them to be a tier 1 employee? Okay, super simple. And a good example of this is, let's say we're having an issue right now with a clinical director, right? Maybe you promoted somebody and for whatever reason, they're high core values. That's why you promoted them. But we're, for whatever reason, lacking some skills here. So what I would typically do is I'd be like, okay, what do they need to be able to do? They need to be able to hire. They need to be able to onboard. They need to be able to train. Okay, so they need to be able to hire, onboard, and train. So then the next thing is we got to be able to set expectations. We got to hold people accountable. And then we have to have communication, cadence, right? Hard conversations, so on and so forth. Okay, so then what we want to do is we want to be able to figure out what skills are they lacking. And let's just say like we're looking at a front office, right? Or actually, let's do this. Let's do a provider, right? Because most of you guys, this might be a provider issue because they have a little bit more on the productivity side, right? So when I'm looking at this, is in order to be a tier 1 employee, right? Here's our core values as a company. And then here's the productivity stuff or the skills that I need them to be able to do in order to be a tier 1 employee. So and by the way, they have good core values. Coach them on the fact that it's just, hey, push the rock, own the outcome, done fast, done right, whatever it takes, like, right, sincere candor. These are our core values. And you are crushing those, right? So it is not a core value issue. Like you are solid there, right? But in order for you to go and transition into this new kind of identity of being one of our star performers here, what I need you to be able to understand is first and foremost, you have to be able to do evals. We have to do pre-booking after the evaluations. We got to make sure that you're crushing the routine visits. We're getting people to the progress summary, and then we're getting people to graduation. We also have to be able to do billing and coding. We have to be able to do documentation, submission, right? And then whatever else you're going to have here. Maybe there's some marketing, maybe there's some quality assurance stuff, right? You got to be able to manage your PTAs, right? So you're going to put all that stuff down. So then what I would do is I'd be like, okay, so let's break this down and see where your deficit is. Because what happens here is, remember, we want to be cautious because we can't really ego hit them because then they'll go down to a tier 4. I want to have sincere candor. So I don't want to necessarily sugarcoat what I'm telling them, but at the same time, I don't need to pile on what you're not doing right now. I need to pile on like, this is what we need to focus on and get you where you need to be. So when we're grading this, like PTAs, you're a 5 out of 5 here. Quality assurance, you do a really good job with that, making sure patients are happy. Documentation could be a little bit better. You're like a 3 out of 5. Billing and coding could be a little bit better. You're a 3 out of 5. Graduation, it's just that's an issue because we're not getting people to graduation. All right. Progress summary is an issue. Let's rephrase. I'll be a little bit nicer here. It's just like graduation and progress summary, when you do them, are fine. Okay. Like when you do those activities are fine. It's just we're not getting enough people to those. When you do routine visits, that's fine. But it's just, okay, pre-booking, we have noticed is non-existent. And then evals, like we're getting people to visit number 3 and they're dropping off. Okay. So super simple. So now all of a sudden it's just, here's your core values. Those are great. And then it's just, here's your productivity and your skills that you lack right now to be able to get to a tier 1 status. And this is what we need to develop. So it's, where do we start? Awesome. Okay. So now we have identified what's going on. And now we can simply create a 30, 60, 90-day performance improvement plan? No, mentorship plan, right? Because we're going to do a mentorship program. We're going to pair them with a mentee, right? It doesn't have to be the owner. It could be one of your other star performers here, right? Your mentees, you go ahead and train this mentor up, right? Do some mentorship here because I want to identify if this person can improve someone's productivity. You guys see that? So if I compare my star performer here that I want to ascend into maybe a clinical director role, what better way to have them start learning the skill set of improvement by mentoring somebody? So now where we're going to start here, do we do building and coding, documentation, graduate, pre-booking, evals all at the same time? Evals and pre-booking are pretty much tied together. So we're going to say, hey, at 30 days, right, the start of zero, so on day 0, right, we're going to be focusing on evals and pre-booking. Okay. So right now, if you got 10 evals, only one of them is booking out appointments. And that's typically why we are not getting past visit number 3, is because people simply don't believe that this is going to work for them. They don't believe in the provider. They don't believe in the process. Maybe there's a lack of confidence there. And they sure as heck don't believe it'll work for them. So if we can get the provider to learn like proper sales and persuasion. And by the way, if sales is selling somebody on the idea that they have to come 2 or 3 times a week and they have to invest time into this thing to get the result that they desire, it's not going to work with once or once every other week scheduling. So we need to make sure that provider has the confidence to be able to convey to the patient, like, hey, if you do exactly what I say in the order that I say it, you will get the results that you desire. And that's the conviction that they need to have. And we see that all the time. It's usually a confidence issue is why people lack eval progression. So now all of a sudden we know that they have a 10% pre-booking rate. And it's just like by the end of 30 days, we would love for that to be up to 20%. By the end of 60 days, we'd love to see that up to 40%. And then by the end of 90 days, we would love to see that up to 60%. Right? Which, by the way, might sound a little bit crazy, but that is what a star performer needs to be able to do. Is 6 out of 10 plan of cares need to be fully booked out. Could be even higher depending on the standard in your company. So now what we want to be able to do is we do the mentee mentorship, and then we know where we're starting. And it's just, here's our KPIs to get there. And it's just by the end of this thing, we should be good to go, right? Now, 2 things will happen, okay? They either achieve it or they don't, right? So if they don't, let's just say they land on 40%, cool, we got improvement. Right? So then we'll just do another set of 30, 60, 90, and then they should be ready to rock and roll by the end of that quarter period. If they get to 30, 60, 90 and they crush it and they're at 60% and there's, woo, you're star performer. Not really, not yet. Because remember, there was other things up here that we can now work on. So now our building and coding and our documentation might be the next thing, or we'll just run them through again and see where the next skill deficit is. Remember, we got to identify what skill is it that they lack, right? What is the target that we need them to get to? And then we just build a really nice 30, 60, 90. We do that mentor-mentee ship. Super simple, right? Because if you do it as the owner, you're micromanaging. If you partner them with somebody else, they get to learn the skill set of training and they get to learn the skill set of improving. If you guys are interested in learning about more of these concepts here, we have a workshop coming up, right? So if you want to reserve your seat, just click on the link below. We'll be covering a lot of things from accountability and expectations, but more importantly, we'll be covering how to get your team to actually become self-managing so that it doesn't really require your time if you're looking to grow. So make sure you click on that, reserve your seat, and I look forward to seeing you guys there.